All right, I believe this means we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions. Welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast, but the QA is the important part because that, of course, stands for question and answer, as we like to make this an interactive conversation, kick off our week, spend some quality time with some friends. I mean, I guess the QA could also be quality assured because we're going to have a good chat and we're going to talk some tech, and we're also going to sort out our feelings on the stories that kind of break over the last week, a little time, a little distance, and we get that sense of what it is that's going on in the world of tech, and we get to follow up on this stuff. It's not just headline outrage porn. We get to follow these stories and really see what's going on. And I'm already seeing a great live chat. I think this is going to be a wonderful conversation because we've got a lot of news to chew through. Some of it's going to be a little sticky and not very fun. Dave Burns, quality assurance. Everyone say good luck to Dave Burns because I think he's in the middle of a move. So, and Braden is trying to jump right on top of my headlines. Ajit Pai will be stepping down on January 20th. We've got some breaking news. But I wanted to start off just, a little check-in. How's everything going on with your families and stuff? Last week here in the United States was obviously Thanksgiving. And I did not get a lot of content out this last week because from Tuesday through Saturday, I was kind of in the kitchen almost that entire time. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the year, and like I said last week, it was kind of messing me up a little bit more than I thought it would. Not being able to spend time in a big family gathering. For whatever happens with Christmas or other holidays or New Year's celebrations that people might enjoy. My personal favorite is Thanksgiving, and it's that whole act of spending a long time in the kitchen with family, talking, catching up. And again, that actively cooking and preparing food for other people, it kind of helps take the edge off of other family gatherings where you've got that cousin who won't look up from their iPad. You've got those aunts and uncles who are gonna like start bringing up religion and politics in ways that are gonna make everyone really uncomfortable. In our family, Thanksgiving is the way that we diffuse that. So we had a lot of Zoom calls. We still got to see family. My wife and I, we pared down our Thanksgiving menu because we were a little anxious that this was like the first time I think we've ever tackled the entire Thanksgiving menu ourselves. Usually when we get our families together, everyone has their own signature dish, and then everyone kind of cooks their one thing, and then we bring it all together to make sure everything's plated for the meal. So we didn't cook as many dishes, but we still cooked the same quantities. So when we made stuffing, we made enough stuffing for what would have been a house full of people. When I make a corn and broccoli side dish, and I made enough to feed like 10 to 12 people. And the only thing we went a little smaller on was the turkey. So instead of getting a really big turkey, because oven space was at a premium, the techie aspect of this conversation is I used the new Instant Pot to cook two smaller turkey breasts, and that worked out really well. First of all, that just shockingly well how well that worked, but it also helped just to kind of take some edge off. So the last couple days, I've been using all of our leftovers in a variety of other recipes. Like last night, I put together New Mexican smothered green chili turkey enchiladas. Another family tradition. They are amazingly fatty and full of cheese and sauce and turkey and tortillas, and they're so cheesy that you can barely taste the heat on very, very hot New Mexican green chili. So, McCorcoran3 is asking, do you have a smart speaker in your Thanksgiving kitchen? I still don't really vibe with smart speakers. When I'm cooking in the kitchen, it's usually a phone that's my companion, just because I can very easily switch between whatever video I'm watching, any communication that I might need to jump on, yeah, pulling up a recipe, and especially in the age of dual display. In the age of dual display phones, where it's really easy to pick up and move, you can angle it just where you want it. I keep flirting with the idea of one of these smart displays in the kitchen, but I keep running into some of the functionality, the roadblocks. We have a dopey tiny little kitchen too, so counter space is at a premium, and the idea of taking up a permanent spot for something like a smart screen or a smart speaker just doesn't quite vibe. And so our kitchen is right off our living room. If my daughter's watching a video or a movie or something, I don't want her to be hearing, like, the adult situations of my ridiculous action movie. So okay, I love watching stupid low budget action films while I'm cooking. What was the one that I just watched? It had Michael Jai White and Tony Jaa. Triple Threat or something like that was what I was watching while putting together the enchiladas. Great action film in the best cheese cornball, lowest budget common denominator. Same thing, going through like the Ip Man films and anything that's got what's his name, Frank Grillo. Frank Grillo has my money every single time. I'll rent any movie he's in. I think he's a cool dude. If it's one of the Purge films or one of these, like, let's go fight aliens. I don't even know the names of the movies. I just think they're awesome. Oh, Simon says Hypno, Black Dynamite. I absolutely adore Black Dynamite, but that is not a movie I can have on where my daughter can hear it. So it's usually me on a pair of earbuds or a pair of headphones. Yeah, V60 and Surface Duo. Lots of, and the Velvet too, because the Velvet's really good for that kind of use. Video up on one screen, recipe up on the other, flipping back and forth if something's happening on the Discord. Those types of devices have completely eclipsed most of the desire I've had for having a smart display in the kitchen. Simon says Hypno is also saying, I got an Echo Show 8 for the bedroom and one for the kitchen. I'm not saying I don't see where there's an appeal. It's just, I wish we had a larger kitchen. If I had a kitchen with an island, I'd like some kind of semi-permanent Star Trek-like display that could just live in the kitchen. I think that would be phenomenal. But the reality of where I'm at right now, phones make a lot more sense. And then also, if I'm kind of whipping a V60 around the kitchen, I'm a little less concerned about like splatter and stuff. My V60 got quite a bit of Thanksgiving on it while I was preparing food this year. So, yeah, it was pretty silly. Dave Burns, I'm afraid of video calling in the bedroom. Yeah, so I don't think Marie would ever let us have a camera enabled, voice controlled smart device in our bedroom. It's kind of, we've got a smart TV, and that's about as much tech as I think we're gonna allow. McCorcoran, is it IPX15 Thanksgiving proof? I mean, I think that's a decent consideration. If you're gonna tell me that a piece of tech is designed to live in a kitchen environment, I am not. I'm not the most careful cook in the kitchen. It's a very active process for me to get food out, and I tend to enjoy a lot of the splatter and spray, because I really enjoy stews and soups and putting together beans and rice and that kind of stuff. So, it's full contact cooking in my kitchen. And for my wife, it's full contact baking. She made these delicious rolls, but there was definitely sort of a hazard zone around the mixer. So that just to kind of finish up that idea, especially those of you in the United States who celebrate Thanksgiving, who appreciate the sentiment of a family-driven holiday, and I know that there's always going to be conversation about the historical significance of a day like Thanksgiving. and coming from a Hispanic Latino family, where uh, we very carefully consider what the historical implications of that day and what we feel is the remembrance or the things to remember of a day like that. Regardless of all of that, I just hope you were able to take some time last week and talk with some family and eat some good food. And hopefully that was something that you could make special given everything that's going on around us. It's just it's just I feel it's important to take those opportunities where we can, even if sometimes we feel that the manufactured holiday of the day might not feel as special. It's kind of up to us to make those moments special. And it's just nice to know that even in light of some significant challenges, um, we have tools and the access to technology that help. It doesn't fully take all the issues away, but it was nice. It was nice putting up a group chat and talking with my family while I was in the kitchen, on a video call, on a group video call, and being able to have speakerphone conversations with my wife's family, and it helped. It wasn't the same, but it helped. Oh, Vazikosate, I remember the old Xperia commercials, phone drops in cereal and then washing it under a faucet. It was actually at, oh man, my wife's family had a Thanksgiving. What was it for? Was it for, I think it was for the S5 Active. No. Okay, the first time I did that, it was for the Samsung Rugby. I don't know if y'all remember the Rugby. It was one of their like Samsung. It was basically like a Galaxy S3 Mini or S3 Lite. I forget what they call it. Maybe it was an S4. Anyway, smaller form factor, but built super super chunky, and it had that gimmicky lock on the back plate, so you could really secure the back of your phone. And I remember I was letting a cousin play with it for one of my wife's Thanksgivings. I can't remember what year this was. Anyway, kid just gets stuff smeared all over it. And most of the adults are in the kitchen. So I just walk in, I'm kind of holding my phone, I'm looking at it, and I just stick it right under the faucet and just kind of like start wiping it down. And everyone flipped out because like no phones were water resistant back then. Man, I loved that. That was so much fun. I loved showing off those rugged phones. Um, Oh, and TK Bay, we made food for the grandparents and dropped it off to help with the distant Thanksgiving we had this year. TK, man, I'm really glad to hear that. My wife did the same thing for her grandfather, where the honey baked ham store. She drove like for over an hour to go pick up this food, and then for another while to get it over to him, and then basically had to drive back. She spent almost the entire day in the car to pull that off, and it's just that feeling. There's something special about this day. There's something special about that idea, and anything that we can do to kind of help, like break some bread, share some memories, have a fun conversation. It's to me that's what this time of year really should be all about. Raymond, I completely agree. Samsung needs mini rugged phones. Oh, I would love to see a return to the glory days of Samsung rugged manufacturing. So we've got a lot of news to chew through, and thankfully we don't have too heavy of a gadget block. So let me just knock this out real quick. Screen share this. Oh, I haven't even tested this. Let's make sure my screen share still works. Hey, there it is. Number one, I had an absolutely delightful conversation on Saturday with Steve Litchfield and Ted. So Steve and Ted of the Phones Show chat, where the fun thing is, hold on, let me get back out of screen share here for a second. Steve is one of my favorite sparring partners. We've had these kind of like Twitter conversations. They don't become debates, and it's never really contentious. The best one, my favorite one, was when I was talking about dual display cases and like, well, look at the bulk of like what you put on the velvet, and that's no different than like a rugged case. And like we had this really great back and forth, and it was fun. I mean, it wasn't like, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, I'm on the internet and someone's wrong on the internet. And ever since then, whenever I see one of Steve's comments pop up on Twitter, or whenever, I mean, I regularly listen to his podcast, The Phone Show. I feel like I don't always agree, but I feel like there's a very specific flavor of commentary from someone who's been producing content for a while. And I like that he's been so consistent in his approach. And so I was going on The Phone Show, and we had kind of listed a bunch of show notes, like, because he's in the UK, they don't get a lot of LG. We were going to talk about the Wing. There were a lot of those kind of trigger words for me, like average consumers and is it worth it? And does it justify the gimmicks? Blah, 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 blah. So I'm ready to kind of like mix it up a little. And then the whole episode was kind of just a love fest for some of the phones that don't always get the same amount of attention. We talked a lot about cameras, especially some of the differences in camera processing. One of their viewer emails was about the Nokia 9. And then Ted and I just kind of had a love fest on the Pixel 5. Like definitely some concerns, and you want to make sure you're targeting the right consumer, but man, the battery life. And it just was a really fun exchange. It was a really sweet back and forth where, again, where sometimes we can kind of spar a little. This one was way more like, yeah, I know. Isn't that really sweet? I thought that was really nice. It was just a fun show to join. Anytime Steve wants to have me back on to ramble, I love jumping into those kinds of conversations with them. So the only major video that I put out this last week, and it's one of the things we're going to kind of chat about in the Gadget blog, was just a ton of prep. I'm wrapping up 2 reviews. I'm trying to put together just some holiday content. I'm really trying to focus a bit more on lifestyle rather than just like, well, here are all the specs and the megapixels and the benchmarks. And it's going to be a shift that I think kind of takes me into next year. Just a minor course correct on the tone of some of my commentary, and I'm trying to feel it out here at the end of 2020. But one of the things that I really wanted to put together was just a very loose, kind of open conversation, and a way to kind of host a conversation about the tech I was thankful for. Last week, Thanksgiving, it felt like the right fit. And so that was the main video I put out last week. The tech trends I was thankful for in 2020. And I'm really not gonna do. I'm not gonna put together a best of the year or this phone was the winner. I'm gonna be on a couple other YouTube channels. Like I'm talking to a couple friends just about their year-end wrap-ups and like what phone did you use the most or what was your winning phone. So I'll be on other YouTube channels to talk about that. For my own channel, I'm not gonna play that game, and I'm starting to get more frustrated by sort of the YouTube trappings of year in review and what was the popular and what was the winner, and that's not really my bag. I don't do winners and losers in my reviews. I didn't want to do winners and losers for my wrap-ups. And so for the Thanksgiving period, that was just sort of what made the most sense. Was there were just a couple loose trends that I really appreciated, and the only specific product I wanted to talk about was one that was discontinued this year. And that was sort of, it kind of ends the video on a bit of a bittersweet, but it was something I was really happy to have used, even though it didn't survive. And I feel like that's a more important part of this conversation, where I'm so tired of, we can only have new ideas when an SEO popular mega corporation determines that it's worth it to start disrupting other product lines. And I really want us as gadget fans and as techies, as enthusiasts, to kind of get out there and support a bit more when there's a new idea. It might mean getting our hearts broken. Like I had my heart broken by losing this piece of tech this year. But if I'd never gotten to play with it, I'd never would have been able to see the potential of this idea in practical use. And it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. So, as a place to have that conversation, I hope other people will check out the video and then also leave their own comments, like what things they were thankful for. And that's, again, I want each of my videos to be the beginning of a conversation, not, this is what you should think and this was the winner of 2020. I think that's boring. Dave Burns, phones need to get sillier in the coming year. I am not a fan of this. Like, I only want to talk about a different phone if it's weird. Isn't it cool how phones are weird again? There was another YouTuber who just put out a kind of a critical review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And while I appreciate the sentiment of why he was criticizing the iPhone, I very much disagreed with the premise of it's not really pro because I have a pro camera and I have a pro laptop and I have a pro desktop and I do all this pro work on pro software. For me, it's like, I don't have issues with someone calling a phone pro, but I want us to talk about what are the actual professional limits. What can you really do with that phone? And those are the kind of conversations. If a phone has crazy, funky, different hardware, I want to examine what does that really bring to the table. Everything is a collection of pros and cons. So let me just kind of catch up on some of these. And from Scrappy Coco 7593, even if some phones have similarities, the user experience can be different. No such thing as winners and losers. It's all on individuals' experience with tech, and I completely agree. All right, so that was housekeeping. Excuse me, my throat's super dry. I'm gonna be sipping quite a bit throughout this. Just a heads up. I'll try not to do that really gimmicky ASMR sipping sound directly into my microphone because I know some people really hate that. I think it's hilarious. I hate it when I hear it on other people's shows, but I think it's really funny. So let me get this out of the way here. And we've got a super full news block. I have a kind of a lean gadget block. So especially if there are follow-ups, conversations, questions you guys want to chat about as we get into the second half of the podcast, have those questions ready. I mean, if we want to turn this into more of even like a tech support kind of podcast, I'm down for the conversation and just we can play this one a little looser. Hey, Ozzy Beach Bum, what's up? Hello from the land down under. And Chatty Boy 3 is saying we love the ASMR. I don't know that we love the ASMR is an accurate statement. You might love the additional sound effects of me using a good broadcast quality mic to amplify my beverage consumption. I don't know that that's accurate for everyone else. Dave Burns. But do we though? My daughter Lex, she has started to find that extra face, what is it? Kind of that Thor like squinchy face. Is it really though? Is it? She now finds that hilarious. So she started doing it back to me too, which is just the most adorable thing ever from a 5-year-old to have that kind of a really silly, cynical kind of reply. And just like, is it though? Really? And then she just starts cackling. It's the cutest thing ever. All right. Breaking news. I am so excited to add this to my show notes. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that my reaction to this is as gleeful and as hopeful and as silly, excited, relieved as it would be coming from someone like me. But we're getting the headlines flowing in, literally updated minutes ago. But FCC Chairman Ajit Pai will step down on January 20. This was written up by Lauren Feiner on CNBC, but the headline is spreading like wildfire through the tech community. Federal Communications Commission Chairman Ajit Pai will step down from his post on January 20th, the day President-elect Joe Biden is inaugurated, he announced Monday. The announcement means the FCC could reach a Democratic majority sooner than it would otherwise be able to. Pai's term was slated to expire in June of 2021, though Biden will be able to choose a Democrat to chair the commission once in office. Commissioners must be confirmed by the Senate. Pai's decision to step down could have significant implications on net neutrality, an issue that helped define his term as chairman. In 2017, Pai voted with his fellow Republican commissioners to remove rules that prohibited internet providers from blocking traffic and offering high-speed lanes at higher prices. I am ridiculously excited about Pai stepping down. And then also, of course he is. Of course, under a different administration and not having the backing of the executive branch, he's not going to be around. He's not going to try and stick it out. He was never an FCC chairman in earnest. He was an agent of regulatory capture representing the best interests of mega corporations, the largest ISPs and carriers, and never truly lived up to what the role of the FCC should be for the citizenry and the consumers. You don't get to side with ISPs and carriers against the wishes and interests of the consumers and not be labeled a telecom shill. Tom Wheeler used to work for the telecommunications industry, and when he was placed as chairman of the FCC, actually listened to consumers, consumer groups, advocates, and that's where we got the beginnings of the open internet order, which later became net neutrality policy. You can aspire to represent people, and Pai never did. He was always sort of the lightning rod, smug, punchable face character who helped distract us from some of the uglier trends in tech and politics. Dismantling net neutrality, weakening the rules on conglomerate media ownership so that, big media conglomerates could go in and buy more media outlets in different markets. He helped deliver billions of dollars of taxpayer money to telecommunications companies without any kind of benchmarks or thresholds or rules for success in broadband deployment. We've been talking about that one for a couple of years, where the telecoms are lobbying our elected officials that broadband needs to be funded like a utility, but we shouldn't be able to tell them how to regulate it, and they should get to keep all the profits. And so this last year, we saw that run again. We saw some minor improvements to some rural broadband, but then most of that money is pretty much just gone. We're not really getting the network improvements, the rollouts. None of that is really getting better, because we can't even define what improvement is. We can't tell you how many families truly don't have access to broadband. And that's all under Ajit Pai's watch. He never shored up public comments. He never protected the consumer or citizen's ability to comment on policy. Then, because the FCC never improved the security of the commenting process, he would point to that as the failure of government. You're the head of the agency that's responsible for improving that security, and you still hold up the insecurity of that process as a reason why we just can't have public discourse. We can't trust the comments on net neutrality because we didn't do anything to protect the comments on net neutrality. So getting back to having a grown-up in charge of the FCC who takes the responsibilities of regulating companies with a tiny underfunded commission in our government. The FCC doesn't have enormous resources to go after billion-dollar corporations, but it would just be nice to have someone at the head of this who is able to bring us back to more reasonable conversations and debate about what the best way is for protecting consumer interests. So I'm not gonna miss him. He's got a golden ticket now. He worked so hard in favor of these telecoms that he's gonna have a golden parachute and go work for some lobbyist or right back maybe to a major company like a Verizon or a Comcast, wherever he wants to go. He gets to laugh all the way to the bank. He made everything less good for protecting consumer privacy, consumer interests, net neutrality, didn't improve anything for infrastructure or broadband, and he's going to get to profit from it crazily. So now hopefully we can just start to undo some of the damage of his reign in in this last election, this last administration cycle. Yeah, and Kyoto Santi will probably go back to Verizon. I don't think he will. I don't think it's going to be an immediate, I'm stepping down because I can make more money and I know I'm not going to get any traction with the Biden administration, so I'll just go right back to Verizon. I think he'll end up at some kind of conservative think tank. I mean, honestly, I think that's probably where he'll make more money, especially having chaired the FCC. He's got a ton of political connections now and political relationships that he can profit from insanely. So I think that's probably going to be his push. And McCorcoran, exactly. He'll probably become a lobbyist. And so there are two, I can't remember their names now. There are two major telecom lobbyists, lobbying groups. And he'll probably go to one of those. McCorcoran 3. He can help them exaggerate the merits of 5G in their marketing. So one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Pai to be stepping down is because we are in for a pretty brutal fight over the next couple years, and I worry that our current slate of politicians are going to be a little under-equipped to fight it. So at least if we have someone at the head of the FCC who can push back a little bit against some terrible policy that's going to be coming our way, we need every tool in our arsenal. We need every bit of leverage that we can muster. Because here in the United States, it's going to get gross. This was another major story that broke over the last week. Comcast is expanding its 1.2 terabyte cap to its entire 39-state footprint in January. Customers that go over the limit will need to pay $10 for every 50 gigabytes up to $100. Starting next year, Comcast will implement a 1.2 terabyte data cap. Oh, sorry. This is from Igor Bonifasic, coming by way of Engadget. I apologize for butchering your last name. Starting next year, Comcast will implement a 1.2 terabyte data cap on broadband usage in 12 states and the District of Columbia. The company has had a data cap since 2016, but this is the first time it will enforce it across all 39 states where it offers internet service. The policy change was first spotted by Stop the Cap. In the first 2 months of the new year, Comcast will waive overage fees to acquaint customers with the new limits. Moreover, once every 12-month period, the company will also give customers a courtesy credit they can apply to the month where they went over the 1.2 terabyte limit. Once you go over the data allotment, Comcast will automatically bill you $10 for every additional 50 gigabytes of data your household uses, up to a maximum of $100. If you live in one of the following states, you'll need to keep track of your usage. And then they list all of the states. It's Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, New Hampshire, New Jersey, North Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Additionally, Comcast will implement the cap in parts of Virginia and Ohio where it wasn't already in place. Incidentally, those areas are places where the company competes against Verizon and its Fios to the home service. As things stand, Fios customers don't have to worry about their usage. In defending the new policy, Comcast told The Verge and other websites that 95% of its customers don't use anywhere near 1.2 terabytes of data in a given month. The median monthly data usage is closer to 300 gigabytes, according to the company. On its website, Comcast notes 1.2 terabytes of data translates to about 21,600 hours of continuous music streaming or 34,000 hours of gaming. Yeah, we need to not let caps happen. I had a backup article to this, and now I don't remember number of data users doubled? Is that? Yes, Ars Technica. John Brodkin at Ars Technica with a great counterpoint to all of this. We mentioned this before. Broadband power users explode, making data caps more profitable for ISPs. The number of I'm just scrubbing through this article. In Q3 2020, 8.8% of broadband subscribers used at least 1 terabyte per month, up from 4.2% in Q3 2019. The number of households that hit that data cap of what Comcast is setting doubled over the last year. And we expect that that's going to go even higher. So now almost 10% of Comcast subscribers are hitting that data cap now and expected to rise. So now more than ever, this is where we need the FTC and the FCC to look at these types of business practices. We've been talking about antitrust with companies like Facebook and Amazon and Apple and Google. We need to talk about antitrust and monopolistic business practices when consumers have no choice, especially for these markets where it's like, well, I mean, you could go with any internet service provider. You could go with Comcast where you'd get 100 megabit downloads, or you could go with some kind of DSL where you get 5 megabit downloads. It's totally like competition. But also, we need to start attacking at the ground level to get rid of some of these laws that stand in the way of competition and also get in the way of things like municipal broadband. At this point, I don't know how we could show any better evidence that the internet is a telecommunications necessity. I mean, it should be treated just like any other public utility. It's mostly built on taxpayer dollars. Its improvement is hinged to taxpayer subsidies. And yet we keep letting these companies just walk away with the profits and not really investing any of those profits back into the system. And then when given an opportunity to rise to the occasion, instead of improving service and bringing down costs and working with their consumers, they institute even more profit gouging of consumers who have no choice in the market. That is not okay. Nick Fell, I love my Google Fiber. I mean, what I really want is a municipal fiber offering. Gigabit fiber, fiber to home. If we look at like Chattanooga, man, that's so good. It's like it's like $30 or $40 less per month than what I'm currently paying Spectrum, and it's substantially faster. Because again, it's just the frustration of you've got to keep track of your usage. We're not going to tell you if you go over. We're automatically going to bill you, and I don't think consumers are going to understand all of the differences. Like, your data cap counts against what you upload. The disclosure of that, when you go through Comcast's site, it's really difficult to get a handle on, well, I mean, most consumers don't use that much data. Well, yeah, but now if you work from home, you're taking Zoom calls and meetings all day, that data cap evaporates pretty quick. You know, some new game console just got installed, or you're going to get your kids a PS5 for Christmas. Those game downloads and OS updates are going to be real meaty. And Dave Burns, utility. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for and was struggling. It's a public utility. It is the backbone of the future of our economy. It's the backbone of the future of our healthcare industry. It's the backbone of our educational system. Without it, this entire last year would have been substantially more difficult for people around the globe. We need to treat it like the infrastructure necessity that it is. And I'm tired of counter arguments. I see no good data to suggest that we shouldn't treat it that way. I see no good data to support the assertion that state laws that prevent competition benefit the consumer in any way. If you're liberal or conservative, it really doesn't matter. Do you want business and competition to improve? And the only way for competition to improve is to enable states to give consumers choices. If another company doesn't want to go in and compete against Comcast, then the people need to have the right to compete themselves. And that's it. You know, if another company says, well, it's not profitable for us to fight Verizon in your neighborhood, cool, we'll make our own. and if there's a law that prevents that, then that law needs to be dismantled, because now we've been shown the proof. When it comes to a real life situation where Comcast could step up and not be this punitive in their pricing, they went with the money gouge, and they'll do it every single time. It is their primary reason for existence, is to deliver as much value to stock and shareholders as they possibly can. And now they've got a captive market that they can squeeze even more. So they're going to do it. And they have no incentive to offer a better service, because there is nothing for them to compete against. So this isn't an ideological fight. This is a philosophy of capitalism fight. And my feeling is, if we're going to protect an actual free market, we need to make sure that the playing field is leveled against this kind of business practice. DTNL, when it comes to public fiber, Chattanooga is the only 10 I see. You nerd. Oh, that's so good. JMX Warrior, I don't understand why FCC hasn't allowed community broadband. Well, over the last couple of years, it's because they are a Republican-leaning corporate backing institution. They are not a regulator looking out for the best interests of consumers, best interests of American citizens. There's an obvious play of using the agency, the commission, for a very specific group of people's benefit, and not for what the commission should actually stand for or represent. But in general, it's, you know, it's a multi-pronged fight. It's not just federal policy. I still have a healthy respect for states' rights. But if you think it's, you know, kind of shockingly easy to curry favor with federal representatives, you know, representatives at the highest offices, imagine how easy it is to sway the decisions of state and city officials. And that's where we've got to fight this multi-staged. This fight has to happen basically at every step of the chain, from the smallest municipalities to larger cities to full states, and then at the federal level too. The FCC kind of can't just override state laws, state policy. But that's also where we've got to have a ground game where we can make consumers at the state and city level a little bit more interested in what's going on. And again, this kind of shenanigan from Comcast, it's going to hit you right in the wallet, and you're going to be upset about it, and there's something you can do about it. And we need to encourage, in a time where we're all exhausted politically, we still need to encourage that active participation. And Dave Burns, exactly. Comcast legislated and sued against community broadband in Pennsylvania, which is why we can't have nice things. It's even when those lawsuits don't have merit, even when those lawsuits really technically shouldn't be won by the telecom, they have the money and the leverage and the lawyers to significantly hurt communities that start looking at adopting those types of policies. I mean, look at the, I want to say, was it Verizon? It might have been Verizon again when San Francisco tried to install citywide Wi-Fi. And they got sued into oblivion, and that project was basically stalled for the millions and millions of dollars that never went into the infrastructure but just went into court fees and lawyer fees. That's why this leverage is so insidious, is that it's not about business. It's not about offering a better product. It's not about competing and really getting it's that they have fought tooth and nail to entrench monopolistic business practices, and now they're reaping the benefits of that. And that policy needs to be dismantled. Oh, Dave Burns, Verizon can outsue San Francisco? Oh, no. Remember, the original version of the open internet order was pretty toothless, and Verizon sued the federal government and won. That is a court case. Verizon versus the United States of America. And Verizon beat the United States of America for the original version of the OIO. That's how deep their pockets are in fighting any kind of potential change to how they are able to do business and conduct and work with. I'm trying to choose my words very not as incendiarily as I want to use that language. So that's the fight, and that's what is going to be so difficult to dismantle, because it's basically now just all money, and who has more money? Local advocate groups or mega telecoms. It's pretty rough out there right now. So Ajit Pai stepping down, that's another tool in our arsenal that hopefully we can leverage. It's a little glowing ember of hope that where we were during the Tom Wheeler years won't take us too long to get back, and then we can actually start talking about consumer protections, competition, consumer rights, and where we go with the next phase of global communications and the internet and accessibility for more people. This is necessary, and now we can hopefully start having that conversation in earnest, where I feel we've basically just been on pause for the last 4 years. And all Greg 38, that's considered a monopoly. And they get around it because, yeah, sure. I mean, you probably have access to another choice of internet provider. In my neighborhood, I have Spectrum, which has I'm on a plan that's 400 megabit down, 20 megabit up, which is vomit inducing. Upload speeds are now a bigger necessity than download speeds. 400 megabit download is kind of, even with every single device in my house, kind of streaming content. Cool. I'm glad I can sustain that. But if my wife is on a Zoom call, my daughter's trying to do some school, and I try and host this podcast all at the same time, guess what falls apart fast is the upload, because I know I don't have 20 megabit sustained. But my other option is really crap local DSL, which is 20 megabit down and 5 megabit up. And we know that 20 megabit down and that 5 megabit up won't be sustained speeds. They'll just be peak maximum theoretical speeds. So I have a choice. I can do business with whoever I want to, unless I really want to get my work done. And then there's only one option for me to sustain that. And again, looking through the local politics, it's just eye roll inducing. But I like my service. Cool. Don't you think you'd like your service better if it was cheaper because there was some actual competition? Or if your service annoyed you, you could go to another company and get comparable service? Oh, yeah, I don't know that we should write laws to do that, though. It just needs to be business and freedom and not laws and not freedom. Because if we have not freedom, that's not as good as freedom. I just want to shake them so bad. Okay. Dave Burns. The fact that Starlink was the easiest solution to this problem says a lot of how broken the whole thing is. And Adityanel is telling me I need to stretch. I'm going to give this a stretch. Oh. Yeah, that was a good time to do the stretch. All right, a little bit of interesting news. Just something for these next couple stories are more the keeping our eye on, staying on the pulse kinds of things. So I'm not going to spend as much time here. But we're seeing an explosion of ARM. I was correct last year that ARM is going to be blindsiding x86. You know, new laptops coming out with ARM instruction set processors. Our phones, if you have a premium phone, it's probably as or more powerful than, you know, a comparably priced laptop. We're seeing the traction finally kicking in. And again, it's frustrating that it took Apple to make a move like this when a bunch of us have been saying this stuff for years now. But yeah, mobile computing, the power in your pocket is getting pretty incredible. And that's also leading to improvements, things like Windows on ARM making more of a splash. We're seeing some traction, some really interesting ideas happening there too. So, Microsoft's Project Latte aims to bring Android apps to Windows 10. So this won't be Google Play services, and anything that overly relies on Google Play services probably won't work immediately out of the box, but we're already seeing Microsoft is implementing Linux in a very interesting way and supporting GPU acceleration and moving beyond just like the app that you can use with Samsung, the PC app. We could be seeing a better integration of apps built for Android directly into Windows, the Windows environment. So the article that I'm going to link in the show notes comes by way of Zach Bowden over at Windows Central. But this lines up a lot. We've been having a bunch of conversations about this kind of stuff in the Discord. And I got to point out Dave Burns, who's in the live chat right now. It's been kind of an interesting conversation about watching Windows kind of become another Linux distro. You know, the underpinnings of what makes Windows, you know, a successful operating system. You know, the good things about Windows are also sort of the weakest points about Windows. And it's frustrating because with Apple, we'll give Apple every consideration. We'll be super patient. We'll wait for developers. They make an operating system change and a move from PowerPC to x86 and then from x86 to ARM instruction set. Well, you just got to give developers time. You know, you got to give developers time, and then all the good apps will be supported by these new ARM computers. But when we do Windows on ARM, what do we know? It's the knee-jerk nerd boy reaction. Oh, but what about my legacy apps? Oh, I can't use ARM because of all my legacy software, and Microsoft can't do anything right. Meh. Sneakily and behind the scenes, it would seem that a future idea of Windows might be just like a Linux kernel. And at that point, we've got a lot more flexibility for how we roll out new hardware, new form factors. If Microsoft wants to do another phone, you know, like all of these things kind of dovetail. And it's a really interesting idea. I don't know immediately, like especially over the next year, what the outcome on that will be. But we're already seeing better virtualization. I believe Windows on ARM has already been kind of finagled to run on M1 on the new Apple Silicon. So if there's greater inroads on app development and support, this might work in ways that has never worked for other platforms. Like when BlackBerry was supporting Android apps on BBOS 10. This could actually move the needle, and lower power hardware with better battery life, better support for cell phone radios. You've got apps that are more familiar if you've used the app on an Android device and it's a one-to-one, you know, sort of continuity to your Windows PC. I think all of that stuff will be a solid consumer benefit. So I think it's something we should keep our eye on it. We should see how that all plays out. And TK Bay, what's up, TK Bay? You mean Dex? I mean, again, the Your Phone Companion app, Chatty Boy had it right. So moving beyond even that, if it's just natively using the app and the service, and we can kind of tie all those things together a little bit more fluidly, I'll be really excited to see it. It could be an interesting fight. It's just frustrating because we know already what the sort of the tech influencer commentary is going to be. And it's frustrating when it's that obvious, like it's that easy to predict. The first ARM laptops came out, the first Windows on ARM laptops. And again, it was like, I know what they're going to say. Oh, the App Store is terrible and I need apps and you don't have legacy software support. And, cool. But you're also telling me about how amazing it is to use an iPad as a computer. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's equal consideration for the pros and cons. Nifty. Let me get this out of the way here. So, a couple quick stories. I don't know the particulars on this. I reached out to Shannon Morse, to try and hit her up for some security chat. Maybe do like a podcast or something. And I kind of want to follow up with her on something like this. But there was a lot of news about Sidewalk. So Amazon faces a privacy backlash for its Sidewalk feature, which turns Alexa devices into neighborhood Wi-Fi networks that owners have to opt out of. And I kind of want to get her take on this more. But this is the beginning of a story we need to follow. In ways where Google got tagged for cataloging Wi-Fi hotspots, Amazon is taking another step where they can turn their Wi-Fi enabled devices into neighborhood mesh networks, and it's up to the consumer using an Alexa to turn that feature off. And to me, that seems like a security nightmare and um, a very, what's the word that I want to use here? A disturbing trend in light of the recent news that more consumers are going to be facing data caps. So Amazon gets to subsidize their network connectivity and probably improve, like the communication with their delivery drivers and their other network enabled devices. And their customers will be fronting the cost for that, as that trafficked data is going to count against their data caps. Like, there's no way to subsidize that data. Oh, this is data coming from an Amazon device. We won't count that against your data usage because we're Comcast and we're totally cool. Like, that's not gonna happen. But it's a gross two-prong consumer detriment. Again, tying up additional bandwidth, using up that data, those caps, and then the potential of any kind of outside network connection being exploited. And if Amazon is not amazingly perfect at securing that neighborhood mesh, then you're vulnerable. So I need to follow up with someone who's better at security. I mean, because the anti-consumer aspect of this is going to go up in a lot of households that they have to pay for the data. They've got a limit on their data. That to me is already unconscionable. But I want to talk to someone who knows the security side of this better, because I'd be very curious to see what kinds of protocols can you employ and what kinds of networking can you safeguard. And is Amazon really up to this challenge on smart speaker, cute little, home Internet of Things devices? Because I'm not sure they are. I don't know, but I don't have a feeling like they're going to be making that a top priority over minimizing their own networking costs. ADTNL, Amazon wants to link neighboring Ring cams despite them not belonging to the same house. I don't know that it's just necessarily linking cameras, but it's more about creating some kind of wide, broad neighborhood mesh. And all they can detail is, like, from Amazon, they say Sidewalk uses Wi-Fi from neighbors to create a shared network that helps devices work better. But for what benefit? Again, it's it's all real nebulous corporate PR speak, and they're not detailing what the actual perceived benefits are supposed to be. And Dave Burns is correct. It wasn't Ring plagued with security flaws at launch. Like, yeah. I mean, a lot of Internet of Things, IoT, smart home stuff. I mean, it takes us a while to figure this stuff out. And like, I still feel like we're kind of running beta tests on consumers. But still, it's even if this were some kind of benefit, and like a tangible one, like you could actually demonstrate, hey, by enabling this, you have this great networked community of devices and they all work smarter and better. I don't know what the threshold or the benchmarks for that would be, but let's say magically that's the gig. Opening up your home network should never be opt out. It should always be opt in. Do you want to take advantage of this great service? Give me the pros and cons and let me decide to turn it on. Don't activate it automatically and make me dig through settings to figure out how to disable it. I mean, again, I'm trying to think. We don't run. Oh, no, we do. I was just going to say we don't run any Amazon hardware in our house. And I was, of course, I use an Eero. I use an Eero mesh Wi-Fi router, which I will be replacing soon. I have my eyes on a new Wi-Fi router that has 10 gigabit Ethernet support because I want a ridiculously fast local network, even though I don't have any broadband that supports gigabit Ethernet. No, our Eero is now owned by Amazon, so I wonder if that's something we'll have to look at. I'll dig through my settings. While we're actually in this podcast, let me see. Because we've been getting a flurry of Eero updates recently, which love to disconnect our network in the middle of the night or when we're trying to be in the middle of streaming something. And while we're in the middle of this podcast, I'm just going to pull up and see if there's been any additional features. Because it's also like they're trying to make your Wi-Fi more of a subscription service. Like, hey, would you like to block these websites? Sure. Oh, well, then you need to pay for an Eero Pro plan. No, you're a router. Shut up. Shut up. I can go into a router and say block these domains. Do you want these advanced parental controls? Yeah. Okay, well, pay us this much money per month. No. Eero was expensive when I bought it. You're a router. Shut up. Aditya, error 404, privacy not found. Oh, it's frustrating because it's true. So yeah, not super stoked on. But someone please, and also I'm just kind of putting this out here as a general call. If there's some additional security conversation or white paper I can read up on, please send it my way. I do not. I just don't have a ton of faith in Amazon doing this for any kind of consumer benefit. To me, this just reeks of it makes them money somehow. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how frustratingly cynical this has all become. Now, what's also a little... I'm wrapping up the news block here, and we're running a little long on the news block. I've been bringing up stories about right to repair. Last week we talked about iFixit. They had a brilliant, just a beautifully shot teardown of the new MacBooks, and for all of the benefits. I passionately believe in ARM computing for consumers being the way to go. The price, performance, power, that ratio, everything about it works out in the consumer's favor. And even if it's not the Apple M1 chip, even if we're on a smartphone Qualcomm chip, more often than not, I feel it's a better price, performance, power ratio than what we can currently offer with like Intel, right? It gets a little bit more competitive when we look at some of AMD's more recent offerings, but still, it's a good fight. And I feel like the advantages of ARM are going to start outpacing x86 over the next couple of years, especially as so much of this is already web-based and little applet-like kinds of interactions anyway. It's a software game. It's really not a hardware power game. The hardware power has been there for a couple years now. So when we look at some of these changes and what ARM actually enables, on the one hand, there's this huge consumer benefit that I'm really excited to see, and I hope developers jump on. Software developers, I hope they really move on this. But on the other side, we have more serious concerns about completely glued shut disposable computers. And that was one of the primary fears in that iFixit teardown. So much of this is better, but you have less control over storage. You have less control over RAM. None of these components are accessible anymore. It's all one fused logic board that has a perk in that it improves performance. Apple making an entire system on a chip, that SoC, that's good for performance, but it curtails, it worsens the situation for long-term maintenance, long-term upgradability, getting more life out of these products. So we're not having these conversations as aggressively here in the United States, but two stories, one out of the UK and one out of the EU, are very encouraging, because if other Western governments are looking at these business practices, eventually we will hopefully see sort of a general global attitude towards walking away from the completely glued, fused, unserviceable, unmaintenanceable, unupgradable computer. So the first one, UK blames Apple and Amazon for tsunami of electronic waste. This is written up by William Gallagher over at Apple Insider. The UK government's Environmental Audit Committee said Apple makes it nearly impossible to repair devices such as the iPhone and not playing their part in recycling. Following a 9-month consultation, the UK's Environmental Audit Committee has concluded that companies such as Apple should be required to be more responsible about electronic waste. Apple, which declined to contribute to the research, is accused of deliberately making its products so expensive to repair that consumers buy new devices instead. And at the same time, this is written up by Owen Hughes over at Tech Republic. Broke your smartphone? Right to repair rules just took another step forward. The European Parliament has voted in favor of right to repair rules for Europe that would make it easier for consumers to repair their own devices, while also cracking down on practices used by manufacturers to shorten the lifespan of their products. Earlier this year, the European Commission announced plans for new right to repair rules covering smartphones, tablets, and laptops in 2021 as part of wider efforts to tackle e-waste and help Europe on its path to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. This is very encouraging. And what's frustrating is that the United States isn't really in that conversation just yet. We're still having this play of different states holding their own committee hearings on right to repair legislation at the state level. And we got to move a bit more in that direction. And eventually we'll start having some of those conversations at the federal level. But from the acquisition of rare earth metals and materials to the global infrastructure of shipping parts and components and assembling in different regions, to shipping again to the final consumer and customer destinations, the upkeep of those devices, the repairability of those devices, and then the end of life for those devices, I kind of feel like Apple is going to be a lightning rod. This conversation needs to apply to a Samsung, to an LG, to every other manufacturer out there, and walking back some of these trends where it becomes more and more difficult to fix these devices. But Apple leads this charge. A lot of people have been commenting like, oh, why does Apple get picked on? It's because Apple makes the move first. Get rid of the headphone jack and then charge you a bunch of money for dongles that replace functionality that they removed from the phone. Make it more difficult to peel off the back glass. And repairing the back glass is even more expensive for some reason than repairing the screen on an Apple device if you're not in some kind of more expensive warranty. And oftentimes, I bet you those repairs aren't really repairs, as they are just replacement with refurbished phones. I got a ding in the frame of my iPhone 8 Plus, and they couldn't do anything. They refused to fix the phone, and I had to use that one-off Apple Care to get a replacement phone. And like, that repair should have been possible, but the frame was damaged. So now this is just junk. This entire phone is just waste. We don't seem to see where Apple really is achieving the kind of recyclability that they're promising. Feels more like a motivation or a pain point to encourage a faster or to encourage a phone upgrade sooner than the consumer otherwise would have needed. This is a concerning trend. And again, when we're talking about these types of policies, it's not even just let's make the devices easier to maintenance. We've got to walk back Apple's business practices on serializing components. So if you take the screen out of one iPhone and you put it into another iPhone, it doesn't matter that that was an Apple certified display. The software in the other iPhone that you're repairing won't recognize the display because it hasn't been serialized to that iPhone. So you can't just swap it. You have to go through a repair process with a Genius or some other Apple certified authorized repair center, and they get to set the rates and the prices and the fees and everything in place to make that a more expensive repair than it probably needs to be. Same thing, batteries, cameras, all of these individual components are now software locked, much like John Deere tractors. You're not allowed to just dig in there unless you've got the right tools which report home to Apple when they're being used, so that those serialized components can't just be swapped one for one and your phone can work again. Those are the kinds of business practices we need to stop now. I mean, we've needed to stop those since the home buttons used to get lint under them and become less functional. It's not okay. So at least in the UK and the EU, they're having real grown-up conversations about this kind of stuff. We'll see if that starts to build some more momentum globally, so that other people around the world can benefit from it too. From Pat Costin, Android devices will be fun. OEMs will blame SoC manufacturers and ISPs on the software side. Apple, on the other hand, is the full stack. Unfortunately, that applies for the pile of cash that will cushion any action against them. Yeah, again, we need to make those business practices very undesirable. So, let's say Apple throttles your CPU performance because they put in a mediocre battery, right? Kind of Apple's bread and butter. iPhone 12 mini, what a cute little phone with an obnoxiously tiny battery for a 5G A14 powered device. But now they tell you when they're going to throttle your battery. But when they get assessed fees and fines, well, we're really taking it to Apple. We're really going to show them that we're not okay with this business practice. They throttled batteries for years. We're going to fine them $100 million. Apple's going to feel that. Yeah, I'm sure Apple shareholders didn't even blink through $100 million fine. It's not great. I'm going to go ahead and kill one of the stories that I had planned here. I want to get to the subreddit, and then we can talk about some fun gadgety stuff. But we're going to be starting a new year, a new presidential administration here in the United States, January 20th. If you care about competition, if you care about right to repair, if you care about broadband deployment, I feel like come January, that's the right time for us to start writing letters, calling elected officials again. I've been kind of slacking off this last year. It's just been a political desert of obnoxious news and flame wars on social media, and it's exhausting. I'm taking the holidays as a break from my normal sort of political like not just the conversations on the podcast, but like offline, where I would try and reach out to elected officials and try and stream the odd committee hearing or go to a community event. In January, it's going to be the right time for us to get active again, to start putting pressure on these politicians to make sure they're aware that people do care about this stuff. And we want this to be better for everybody. And there are ways that we can kind of safeguard the mechanisms of our economy and still come out with ridiculously popular products and super wealthy shareholders. Like, everyone can still be happy. It doesn't need to be so exploitive of one group of people so that another group of people can get everything that they want. So, McCorcoran 3, the glowing rectangles lobby. We could be a lobbying group. I don't see why we couldn't be. A grassroots, public, publicly accessible, coordinating with, the EFF. We've got really savvy people in this live chat. We could start a trend of being commentators on this stuff. DTNO, what's a lobbying group? I'm in if we get to make memes. Aditya, you can be our official meme master for more reasonable telecommunications public policy. I love it. All right. Quick plug for the subreddit. Every podcast has a subreddit. My podcast is no different. And this was another just banner week for reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Some pretty big traffic. We another small chunk of new subscribers, growing numbers of submissions. We still need your support. We still need your sharing, talking about the subreddit, sharing directly from the subreddit, and then those upvotes. Don't be stingy with the upvotes. But these are the top stories that we hit last week. And let me go back into screen share. Number 1, Team Vry with 1,000 subscribers. Pixel 4a review, most impressive. Number 2, Gary Explains with 188,000 subscribers. iPhone 12 versus a 4-year-old Android camera. He had a camera shootout and got like a lot of viewer feedback on samples of a new iPhone 12 versus an old Android, and it was interesting to see some of the comparisons there. Number 3, the Friday checkout from TechAlter. China is running out of chips. And then number 4, he had a video about the Fold 2. So, of course, that video was very popular. I need to upvote it. Was very popular on the subreddit. And then Erica Griffin, we fit a huge TV in a tiny apartment. So she just got an 85-inch TV. And then Tech PhD with 800 subscribers. I think this is wrapping up the top. Oh, this is number 6, but wrapping up sort of the top 5 creators on the subreddit. 3 reasons you shouldn't buy the iPhone 12 Pro. Just a really great, diverse collection of tech commentators from all sort of angles of the tech spectrum. Where the number 1, submission this week came from a channel with 1,000 subscribers. You've got folks like TechAlter with 400,000 subscribers, Erica Griffin with 800,000 subscribers, and then Tech PhD with 800 subscribers. I feel like this is becoming more and more a better representation of the tech community and the tech conversation out there, from people, real person review style tech conversations, all the way up to some of the big main heavy hitters. And it's always getting mixed up. Like it's never just, oh, well, this one channel with 10 million subscribers put out a video, I guess it's always going to be the most popular. It's a good spread. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. It's my subreddit, but it's not a subreddit about me. It's not a subreddit about this podcast. It's a platform I'm trying to grow, trying to build, because if we let YouTube's algorithm decide for us, we're going to get the recycling of the same points of view from the same handful of creators that are deemed the most popular for their algorithm. And that's not the reality of our community. And that's not the reality of what this stuff really is like when we're using it out in the field. One more time, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. I hope you'll check it out. I hope you'll share to the subreddit. I hope you'll share from the subreddit, bring a couple more eyeballs to this project. And again, we need those upvotes. Making something more popular on a smaller subreddit means it's going to be more search viable for a larger subreddit, and that could blow up someone's YouTube career. Like that could help them get monetization. That could help them find a whole new community, a whole new audience. It's growing, and that's what's so encouraging. So especially over this holiday season, when we're all feeling very generous, I hope you'll spend some time and make the effort to support some content creators out there who deserve more attention. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Aditi Anil, Team Vry has been killing it recently. Absolutely has been. I think at least in the top 5 for the last several weeks that we've been going through the weekly subs and top submissions at the subreddit. Just really, really fun to see. I got to switch mugs. I'm out of water in this mug. All right. So, like I said, Gadget Block is really loose, guys. There's something that I want to talk about because we started chatting about this last week. I don't do a ton of app reviews and software commentary for phones and stuff, but as we're closing out this year, I've been struggling with some of the ways that I try to talk about phone performance. It is my assertion that if you're shopping above like a $400 tier, you should be looking at more specific interactions, more specific features, really trying to tailor fit that experience beyond just it has a nice camera and I can get on Instagram. Like we need to start encouraging a conversation around these products that, it's not okay to say $1,000 phone. No one needs to buy $1,000 phone. But if that $1,000 phone enables you to get the same quality of work done where you don't need a more expensive laptop or a mirrorless camera, or you don't need to walk around with a digital audio player because you're an audiophile, like there are good reasons, but we just need to be more specific about what those reasons are. So I've been really trying to take a look back at my benchmarking process. And especially if you were in the Discord, you would have seen some really silly photos from me because I'm struggling on batteries. I've never been a battery benchmarker. Like the way that we all have these different criteria for how a phone should run, what type of battery longevity we should expect. To me, philosophically, this has been the most difficult aspect of the phone reviewing conversation. I use my phones pretty heavily screen off. So screen on time isn't always an accurate reflection of what that battery can accomplish in my use, especially when I'm driving around. Not so much this last year, but in years past. So when I talk about battery life in the context of one of my reviews, I tried to make it more experiential. Since before joining Pocket Now, the main battery test I've employed has been 30 minutes of HD video streaming over Wi-Fi. Over the last year, I've tried to bump that up to an hour of HD video streaming over Wi-Fi. The problem with that is, so my reason for that was I wanted a real world test of something that might happen out in some kind of real life situation. You're stuck at the DMV, you're in line at a grocery store, you're sitting in traffic at a Costco gas line, waiting to fill up your car. I mean, some type of situation where you would be kind of bored and you want to do something on your phone, and you might stream for like 15 minutes, you might stream for 30, but you would have some idea of what kind of a hit that's going to be to your phone so that you might decide, well, I don't want to run a half-hour video here because then I won't have enough battery for the rest of my day. And when I started running this test way back in the day, I mean, we're talking in like the Galaxy S3, Galaxy S4 era, I think is when I started locking in on that as the specific battery test. That was kind of a big concern. You stream for a half hour and then like you might not have enough battery life to last the rest of your day. You know, again, we've improved efficiency substantially over these many years that I've been reviewing tech. I can remember like on Pocket PC phones, I'd want to watch a video that I'd have to transcode specifically for those like quarter VGA screens. And like, man, that battery would be dead before I could finish a sitcom. So one of the complications when I started really honing in on this test, I decided I would use Netflix. Netflix was the service I was going to use. Very, very common service, easily accessible service. The recent changes to the Netflix app have made this significantly more difficult because when I run this test, I try to match the screen brightness. So it's similar power envelopes that the phones should be putting out. And then we can see, do some phones handle video streaming better than other phones? Well, on top of that, the way that Netflix implements security and that changes the resolution of the video and the quality of the video streamed to the phone has also been kind of weird over this last year. Like detailing LG devices, where these are amazingly powerful, capable displays, bright, juicy OLEDs. But then my V60 is actually one of those phones that's on the lower security tier from Netflix, so I don't get streaming in full quality. So when I stream on that V60, my battery life numbers are better than they should be because the phone isn't working as hard to chew up higher quality video. And then it's incredibly difficult to match the screen brightness, so I have an accurate and consistent comparison point between all these different devices. So I've started testing with Plex because I can control a little bit better. The Plex server is my NOS, and it's just sort of it's a streaming that goes through the Plex service. It's still over Wi-Fi. But increasingly, I'm having trouble just like trying to wrap my brain around what is it that I'm trying to tell consumers? What experience am I trying to relay to people so they understand something about their phone? You know, I've got a list here of like the actual differences when we look at the total battery capacity, the percentage of battery reported drained, how long that took, or the period of time that took place with, the actual juice that was put out. I mean, if I tell you, like, if you stream for an hour of HD video, it's actually chewing up HD quality video on a V60, that's roughly 300 milliamp hours of the capacity. But, even though it's a similar percentage, if you stream on a ZTE, that's 500 milliamp hours. I mean, like, that doesn't help convey anything about the consumer experience. Like, I'm getting into these scientific weeds of conversation, and the battery thing has always been problematic, but now it's even less insightful. You don't walk away from that conversation feeling any better informed. What is it that I'm getting? What is it that I'm looking for in this showdown? Like I did an hour-long streaming through Plex at the matched brightness. So each screen was at the same brightness on the Xperia 1 Mark II, TCL 10 Pro, LG Velvet, the Nubia 5S, that ZTE gaming phone, the OnePlus 8T, the LG Wing, the Pixel 5, the Surface Duo, and the V60. The Surface Duo in single screen mode used the least amount of battery. Does that help you? I don't know. I really don't know anymore. By a significant margin of actual battery capacity, the percentage of the battery used, the Surface Duo was the winner. I don't know what to make of that. It's got the smallest battery of all of the phones I've reviewed, but it used the least amount of the smallest battery. Does that inform? The second place was the V60, which used the least amount of the biggest battery in my test. The second least amount of battery in my battery test. I really don't know how to talk about this. See, and like Dave Burns is like, we've got so much junk that we need to try and convey. So like screen on time doesn't really mean anything to me because someone's usage is going to be very different. Is that, did you get 10 hours of screen on time just streaming YouTube, or did you get 10 hours of screen on time playing Battle Chasers Night War, which is a really heavy PC port RPG game? It's not the same. And I'm trying to detail, like Dave Burns is saying, well, were all of the SoCs running at the same clock speed? Did they default to the smaller power cores? What are the differences in not just OLED versus LCD, but then also the power draw of a faster refresh rate display or some kind of additional HDR capabilities? Do you force Plex to transcode, or do the phones read the files natively? And so one of the ways that I'm trying to mitigate that is each phone is getting the source video quality file, and I've got a Blu-ray rip of Galaxy Quest that is roughly in the streaming quality footprint of what it would be like to really stream a video off of Netflix. We can count on what is it? Netflix streams at around 3 gigabytes of data per hour, somewhere in there. And my Blu-ray rip is stupid high quality. So I'm not having Plex manipulate the video quality, because on an Android phone, it almost automatically drops to standard definition. It almost immediately just craters the quality when you let Plex decide. But I was doing that Blu-ray rip. If you're in the Discord, you saw the photo. I was streaming that to, I think, 8 phones at the same time. And my NOS handled it fine, because again, it wasn't having to do a local transcode. So I feel like battery tech has improved way more than we've really given it credit for. And now we're pushing phones to ever increasing like hardcore gaming and work uses. But the reality of this battery testing, it kind of doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, I was trying to vibe my results with the charts over at GSM Arena, and I can't find the hook. I can't find this is the number I can give you that will impress upon you the differences in battery performance. Battery recharging rates, that's easy. I plug the phone in for 30 minutes and this is how much topped off, and some batteries are bigger than other batteries, so it's embarrassing when an iPhone has a tiny battery but it charges way slower than a OnePlus. Apple could do better. That's cake. Like, I can do that all day. But trying to tell you, like, hey, you're in the middle of a busy day and your day just got put on pause and you want to stream a video for a little bit, and a 7 to 8% hit to your battery doesn't mean much. It doesn't empower you with good data. I don't know how to handle that. It's kind of like fuel tanks, gas tanks in cars, right? We've got these like automotive benchmarks and thresholds and measurements. And you're like, oh, this car gets like 40 miles to the gallon highway. Kinda? We have a hard time just accurately assessing a vehicle. Like, we have a hard time just measuring how much gas is actually in the car, right? I remember there was that Top Gear test where they were trying to run a Prius against, it was like a BMW M3 or something like that. And they had an incredibly difficult time just measuring how much fuel was really in the vehicle once you accounted for gas in all of the in all of the engine and the cabling and the pipes that literally run from the gas tank to the engine. Like, this was actually a bigger challenge than you would think it is. You can't just perfectly bleed out a car with no fuel and then pour in 1 gallon of gas and perfectly measure what that's going to be like. The fuel line, the ounces of fuel in the fuel line still have a small but noticeable effect on the outcomes of a test like that. Or what was one of the other ones? I forget. It might not have been Top Gear. It might have been Road and Track, where they tried to do windows up with air conditioning versus windows down with airflow to see what was more fuel efficient. And even our results are open to a wide variety of interpretation. So when you look at your battery and it says like, well, you've got a 4,000 milliamp hour battery and you're at 82%, your estimates on the runtime left are all wide open based on the electrical potential of that battery and the use that you've put it through up to that point. So let's say you've been running the battery just on some social media and texting, and then you want to play a game. Obviously, that is a different calculation for the remaining runtime. That potential is fluid. Aditya, no, there's a lot to unpack here. So many variables. My battery drain comes from usually a 40-minute video call I do daily. My MP3 playback is minimally affecting the battery life. Gabaletta, I think battery testing as a measurement for performance isn't really a representation of what the phone is capable of doing. Battery testing as a measurement for how a device is optimized is a measurement as to what the manufacturer can achieve. Yes, that's what I've been trying to illustrate, but now I'm not confident in my ability to illustrate that. Again, like the Duo has a very strange half-screen design. The OLED, the resolution, the way it letterboxes. So I'm watching a movie like Galaxy Quest on a Duo. Almost half the screen in one screen mode is just letterboxing because it's a very square aspect ratio. So against a phone like the V60 where the whole screen is being used to display that video and it looks really pretty, the Duo gets this incredible advantage where almost half the pixels on the screen are black. So that's super, super low power draw. So of course, it's not necessarily, I mean, I really do believe Microsoft has done an amazing job of optimizing performance for the Snapdragon 855, but then the Duo as a display gets this critical advantage when watching a movie by having dead space on the screen. Yeah, it doesn't properly convey the experience, and then those numbers, it's not an oranges to oranges comparison. Again, it's just really hurting my brain looking at all this data and trying to come up with some through line, something that I can speak to, I can represent easily. So I'm going to keep incorporating these tests, but it's not the same as the performance testing. Like once I found Photomate and it had a batch processing and it was a single purchase app. By the way, Photomate has been a phenomenal photo processing app. I mean, it is, I made the quip like, well, it's like 70 or 80% of Lightroom. It's like 90% of Lightroom, just in a slightly uglier package, but the capabilities are just phenomenal. And you buy it once. Again, this podcast not sponsored by Photomate R3, but it's a great little app. And I really hope people who are into photo editing on the go will check it out. Chewing up my Sony RAW files, my Panasonic. I mean, it's just really, really good. Dave Burns, it's ugly as sin, but you love it anyway. It is. It is not a pretty app, but it is so incredibly capable. And once you hit batch process, it's just wonderful to see a single purchase, non-subscription media editing app just tear into real camera RAW files. Awesome. I love it. Performance testing has gotten way easier, but this battery thing has been messing me up. I'm from ER1980. Jay Williams has been stating this a lot recently about screen on time in his videos. Screen on time is such a useless metric. Unless you can perfectly account for an entire day of use and replicate that exact same day of use, screen on time is a meaningless metric. I can give you like 20 hours of screen on time if I set the brightness down to its absolute minimum and then just keep it on the home screen. I can generate a screen on time that just looks absolutely amazing. And then if I want to portray another phone in a poorer fashion, I can split screen it, run benchmarks, and play a game on another phone. And well, see, this phone got much poorer screen on time. It's not as good. Dave Burns, thank you. It was Mythbusters, not Road and Track, that did the air conditioner versus Windows rolled up test. Thank you. It was driving me nuts. I can see them driving in my brain. I couldn't remember who actually did the test. From Pacoston, I keep forgetting, do you get the line in the middle while watching movies with the Surface Duo on a TV? No. The Surface Duo fills in that hinge gap when it's connected to another display. It's pretty great. I mean, again, it does not know that it's a dual display device. The Surface Duo thinks it's a tablet, one single screen tablet. It really is one of the best tablet experiences I think you can get. From Dave Burns, I'm looking at buying the Affinity Suite right now so I can be done with Adobe forever. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I do anything with Adobe anymore. My video editing is on Resolve. My basic, just sort of, when I work with layers for photos and for thumbnails, I do most of that in GIMP. Sometimes if I'm really just trying to fly through something, I'll slap something together in Snapseed. My audio has always been Sony software, which is now Magic's software. So my recording I usually do in SoundForge. I was using Lightroom for RAWs for a while, but now I'm playing with a couple of those open source editors, and they're not as good. They really aren't. I really like the workflow in Lightroom, but on my desktop, I just can't keep justifying multiple subscriptions for software that I don't really feel is getting updated in a way that I would want to keep paying for it over time. And I miss I bought it once and I could skip 2 or 3 generations kind of software model. When Adobe went to Creative Cloud, I was really like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm always going to be at the bleeding edge of Adobe support. But it doesn't really feel like you've gotten much for that money. And more often than not, it introduces more problems. But the Affinity software suite is looking pretty solid too. The only reason why I'm really working Photomate is the Android side, where I want Android apps that compete with the functionality of iOS apps and don't charge me another single solitary yearly subscription fee that is way overpriced for the type of support and functionality that you get. So yeah, that's my gig there. From Gabaletta, the second you, as in a general you, decide the parameters for a screen on test result, it stops being a real measurement of how a device is going to last you throughout a day of use. And it's been my issue. It's like looking at the results at GSM Arena. I love how scientifically consistent their testing protocol is, but it's really difficult, in my opinion, to relay that into a real world result. I know they've got the little sliders and you can say, well, if you get more phone calls, you can tweak our results so you can see what phones are better for that over phones where maybe you're doing more web browsing. And I understand that they're kind of in the same boat that I am. It's just I don't really feel like those numbers really reflect what it's like to use a phone. And then I don't think they take into account the behavioral changes we've seen over the last couple of years. Like, thanks to the ridiculous battery in my V60, I use that phone. I mean, it's unrecognizably more aggressively than I would have used like a Galaxy S8. We're talking about different universes of use. So relaying that idea of it's like if I only stream 30 minutes of video on a V60, I can't even properly measure that. Even the battery draw apps that I've tried to use, like it's a number that barely registers as margin of error. Vazico say Luminar seems to be awesome now. What's Luminar? Cutting edge photo editor for Mac and PC. All right, I will absolutely check this out. Your photography elevated. An application and plugin for Mac and PC. Standalone photo editor and browser with full RAW support and plugin for Adobe and Apple products. Ooh, I like this. Oh, I like this a lot. Vazikos, that's a good suggestion. How much is this? Not bad. Okay. Oh, and I can pre-order for Luminar AI. That's a good pick, man. I'm going to try this out. I like that a lot. Okay, in the live chat, folks. Absolutely awesome. Some great suggestions for software. And again, if you have other recommendations too, I mean, like, it's really fun playing through a lot of these other sort of open source and available pieces of software. I can always throw out a shout for Audacity if you're looking at recording audio. It is just a brilliant, ugly as sin, but it's functionally so complete. I've been using the XN, like XN Convert, for some of my batch photo processing. That's another free. I've chipped them donation cash, but you can use the core XN Convert for free. There was like a fork of GIMP that I need to try, just to see if that's changed up anything. But the most recent updates to GIMP have been solid. You just lose some of the really fun AI brushes for photo correction and blemish correction and stuff, but actually hasn't been too much of an issue. Yeah, it's just been kind of interesting. Glimpse. Thank you. GIMP. Glimpse. Because there was also an issue with the name GIMP, that people got a little sensitive to the what was a funny acronym for a graphical image manipulating program. But again, I want to check out the fork just to see if there's been any functional change in that too. I mean, I installed GIMP way back in the day, and I've just been updating from there. So I haven't really experimented with other products. Thank you, new image manipulating program. So it honestly really hasn't been that difficult walking away from what little investment I had in Adobe, but the biggie was Resolve. As soon as I started editing in the free version of Resolve, I kind of like grokked it super quick and really liked the workflow. And then paying for Resolve Studio has leveraged my 2080, my NVIDIA graphics card, way better than I thought it would. And like my render times just plummeted when I was working on collaborative projects through Adobe or when I was working through Vegas. So I still used to do a lot of cutting in Vegas. Man, Resolve is so good. I'm getting really excited for Resolve 17. So yeah, now I'm gonna have to try Luminar. I really like what this looks like. So I'm gonna have to kick him some cash. So Luminar for 2 computers, works as standalone and plug-in. I really want to know what this Luminar AI is. Again, it's just so cute when we're like, the first image editor fully powered by artificial intelligence with Luminar AI, creating striking photos becomes surprisingly easy and fun. Cool. There's more awesomeness about Luminar AI to be discovered. As an early bird, you'll receive it before the rest. Plus, now you'll get it at the very best price. Coming this holiday season. Rated R. It's not rated R. It's like E for everyone. It's photo editing software. You're fine. So, this is all true. I'm going to be doing some benchmarking articles on the OnePlus 8T and the ZTE Nubia 5S Red Magic. Simon says, Hypno, in a land before Lightroom. I wish I had a trailer voice. It'd be really fun to do trailer reads. Excuse me. So I'm going to be doing some more by the benchmarks articles on those. And I think in those articles, I'm going to have to address the battery issue in reliably and consistently testing. But the battery recharge rates are phenomenal. Sorry, it's just cracking me up. And I'm really excited. I'm kind of like side-eyeing this Luminar website. And I should probably focus on talking through my podcast. So I'm going to be putting out those articles. I'm really excited because they'll be the first to incorporate that new photo test, and just collecting all the data on that has been really crazy. It's 200 raw files from a Sony Alpha A7 III, and running a batch process on that many photos is this crazy stress test just for the pure speed of what the phone can accomplish. And then also the thermal throttling. So the test can run for 14 minutes getting through all those photos. And it's interesting to see like how fast the first 100 photos are finished. And then what phones seem to struggle to keep up that pace for the second 100 photos. So yeah, I'm really stoked. Oh, and the Legion. So yeah, I reached out to Lenovo again. Hopefully we'll be able to work up some kind of coverage on it. I mean, it'll be a short-term loaner if I do get it. I'm not going to be doing the same kinds of deep dives that I would normally play with for a phone. It's just to kind of talk about something that's a little bit different. Same thing that I'm doing with the Red Magic. The Red Magic isn't going to be one of my mainstream, really in-depth phone reviews. I'm borrowing it from a friend. Ricky, the YouTube tech guy, and it'll be fun to talk about, but I'm not going to be able to hold on to it for the full slate of all of the super camera deep dive, audio deep dive. It's kind of more, I just want to see what about this as a gaming device really improves the experience for people who might be interested in that. So it should be pretty fun. The other thing that I wanted to kind of wrap the show on is maybe, well, let me just say, like I'm the IT guy. I'm the DTNO. Can we expect the return of some reviewer bruh for the Legion Duel? Probably not. I'm very, very, very limited in when I bring out some gadget bruh. So I don't know that I want to work that character too hard for every single gaming phone review. Gabaletta, it's a gaming phone. I don't care about the camera test. Ooh, and Simon says, Hypno, that's a good comparison. Now I have to decide on a new phone being offered deals on the Xperia 1 Mark II and the P40 Pro. That's a good fight. I mean, I think in terms of software, I'd maybe lean to the Xperia and then having a little easier time supporting Google Play services if that's what you're concerned about. But camera fight to camera fight, you never want to count out a Huawei. But yes, so getting to closing out our show here, and just I'm sort of the family tech support. I'm sure many of you are family tech support, your family and friends. And I've mentioned it in the past. My wife, she has been using my old LG G7. I miss that phone. Unfortunately, even though she has it in a pretty rugged bumper case, she broke the back of the phone. And so really, the battery life was starting to degrade a little. It wasn't updated as well. It was the official Google Fi edition of the G7, and it never got updates like the other carrier-branded G7s. And so, damaged phone, poor battery life. The reception's been okay. We're just really looking at what were we going to do to replace that phone. And for me, I've been really trying to push her to get a 5G enabled device, because I feel, it's not that I feel, it's that in our condo, we do not get LTE reception on T-Mobile. Like, if I'm in this office and I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, or if it's a phone call situation or some type of problem like that, it's like the phone just does not get signal. So for me, that was really important. For her, she did not want to give up a headphone jack because she has an iPhone issued for work, and she hates dealing with dongles and adapters, and she's got really nice earbuds that are custom molded to her tiny little pixie ears. So for the first time in her life this last year, she was on earbuds that properly fit. She uses them all the time. It's been really beautiful, actually. It's been exciting, especially as an audio snob, to see that like some pro level gear that isn't as expensive as you would think it would be. She is rocking those almost every day. So, and then also we didn't want to go with the absolute biggest phone. So one of the first that kind of came to mind, I don't have the T-Mobile versions over on the bookshelf right now, but I was thinking, like you're on an LG, you know how LGs work. We could maybe look at like a Velvet. I put the Velvet in her hands and she kind of furrowed her brow a little bit. And then she looked at the broken back on her G7 and she saw all of this glass and all of these curves and just what it would be to try and find a case for it and get a screen protector on there. And it was just too big. This was too big of a device. So then I put one of the Pixels in her hands. It was a little Pixel 5. And she was like, oh, this is a great form factor, but I want the headphone jack. And so we were really torn. Like, I have the Pixel 4a. We have the Pixel 3a. I mean, you could even just use the Pixel 3a until we can maybe buy you something. And she was really leaning towards the Pixel 4a. Headphone jack, smaller phone, but I was bummed that it did not have the 5G. So all Greg is already over it. He's already kind of beaten me to the punch here. I have to send a thank you to the Team Pixel folks at Google, because they sent over a Pixel 4a 5G. Now, this is a little bigger than what she wanted to use. She wanted to go down to a smaller device. Tech Lovin' Mama's in the live chat. Everyone say hey to Tech Lovin' Mama. Hey. But it satisfied the criteria for a headphone jack, so she can still use her earbuds, which we're going to have to test to see if they live up to, they don't live up to the G7. I'm going to see if they bother her, though. And then I really wanted that 5G connectivity, and both of our plans are on Google Fi. So we're longtime Google Fi subscribers. She's going to fire up a Google phone, and it's going to link up with her Google account, and she can Google Fi on her Google account with her Google phone. I'm expecting that process to be really, really easy. But I just I feel like there's that moment of silence. It's like the saddest part of being an LG fan. We lost another one, guys. Another consumer looking at going from an LG device to some other manufacturer out there, and it's just it's just pretty brutal. It's pretty sad. All Greg, do you like Google Fi a lot? So I feel like a bunch of these other lower cost MVNOs have kind of caught Google Fi, especially if you're looking at metered data. But we've had great service. They kicked over 5G as soon as T-Mobile started putting up 5G towers. At some point, I'm going to be traveling again, and I still feel like, Google Fi has been the easiest for using international data. It's just basically a part of the service that wherever you land in the world, it finds a tower and a carrier that Google does business with, and then it just uses your data exactly the same, and you don't have to pay any other kind of additional fee or processing or international data rate. It's brilliant. T-Mobile, I think, is a close second, and now Google Fi is basically T-Mobile with a little US cellular mixed in. But especially because we're not using a ton of data, we went back to the metered plans as opposed to the unlimited plans, and our bills have been ridiculously cheap. I could probably get a little bit cheaper if we went to Mint or Visible or one of these other carriers, but it's honestly not been worth the hassle. And the cool thing is the recent update to messages. So messages on the web. Now you can tell Google Fi messages to work more like Google Voice. So if I'm sitting in front of a web browser, I can take calls and get text messages and reply to text messages without my phone being on. So it actually is a web portal to your phone, not your phone sends your text message to your web browser. So messages for web is super cool. It's not as good as Hangouts used to be, but now on Google Fi, it's almost exactly like that relationship was with Google Voice and Hangouts, which is super handy. Like I hate, I'm working at my workstation, I get a text message, and then I've got to like see if it updates in a web browser, and then I can reply from messages on the web. Now it works way more seamlessly. Just it sends to the web browser actually faster sometimes than it gets to my phone. So that alone for me is one of the primary reasons. It's cheap. When I travel again, I'll be back on international data plans as seamlessly as possible, and messages on the web, messages for web, so much better than sort of a regular phone texting messages for web. So yeah, it's been great. So my wife is setting up a Pixel 4a 5G. My predictions. I think she's gonna like the camera better. I think she's gonna like the camera better than what she had on the G7 because she very rarely ever tried to take advantage of the G7's manual or pro modes. And that the G7 was back in the day where LG was doing that really slow and labored HDR photo stacking. So HDR photos from her G7 have never looked great compared to some of the other competition out there. I'll be curious to see if she notices a difference in the headphone jack performance. Her earbuds are not especially thirsty. They're pretty low impedance headphones. So I don't think the Pixel's going to have an issue driving them at a reasonable volume, but I'll be curious to see if she notices any sonic characteristics or audio quality differences going from the G7 to the Pixel. But then also, she'll be on a 5G phone. She'll have the same camera capabilities. She'll have a normal photo and an ultra wide. She'll have 4K video content capture. I don't know that she'll probably recognize the differences in screen tech, but I'll be curious to see if she comments on it. Going from the G7 super bright LCD to the OLED on the Pixel 4a 5G, and I bet you pretty hardcore after how hard she's run the G7 that she'll comment on improved battery life. Like I think the Pixel 4a 5G is gonna be a shot in the arm for her daily runtime, because right now she's running that G7 so hard, she has to top it off after lunch, and like every day. That phone is plugged in like twice a day. So I think that's going to be one of the primary upgrades that she notices. I doubt she's going to notice differences in processing power. I bet you the Pixel is going to feel snappier, even if it's technically less powerful. But what we're going to do is we're going to run through the holidays. We've got a case and a screen protector on order. She's setting the phone up now with all of her personal accounts. And then I think in January, we're going to do a podcast. It'll be like the first time. It'll be one of the only times that she'll just sort of chat on mic. So I think that'll be fun. It's like she's written a few sort of real life examinations of some of the tech products that I get to play with. She did the video where we got her those custom molded earbuds from Me Audio. And again, Me Audio, custom molded ear tips, real good times. She loves those earbuds. And this will be one of the only other times she's going to make some kind of an appearance on the channel. So I'll be really excited to see, like, this is just going to be her phone. The Team Pixel crew are sending this over like pretty much just for her to use. Again, another amazing opportunity, and a huge thank you from the Team Pixel folks. And it came at exactly the right time. Like, this checks all of the main bullet points, and the one compromise she's going to need to make is not going with the absolute smallest form factor. So again, I've got some predictions. I got some ideas on where she's going to end up, but I'll be curious to see where she actually lands. with a phone that's going to be very different. It's, she's used Samsungs and LGs, primarily Samsungs and LGs. And so now I'll be curious to see what she thinks of the Google flavor of Android. From ER1980, talking about the Pixel 4a 5G, 9 to 5 Google have just dropped a video on it titled "The Price Perfect People Pixel," and I'll have to watch that later. I mean, this is also one of the things I talked about with Steve Litchfield and Ted over on the phone show. There is, if you're using your phone the same way that you've been using a phone for like the last 5 or 6 years, there is zero reason to spend more on a new phone than like $300 or $400. Really, none at all. And at like $350 for a Pixel 4a, compared to like a phone that might be 3 or 4 years old, the Pixel 4a is a stonking great buy. Even for some of my concerns about LTE refinement and 5G rollouts and 5G adoption, even for those considerations, the Pixel 4a is a monster. It does not feel like $350 worth of phone. It feels like a proper, nicer, mid-tier performer. And for all of that whinging on about different camera sensors or different battery tech or different screen refresh rates, not the gig. I put that phone in someone's hand and they cannot identify where that phone costs half to a third the price of a more premium device. It hangs, it doesn't win, but it hangs with every other comparative metric that average consumers claim that they care about. And the only time that people kind of wince a little is like, well, it's $350. Oh, well, it must be compromised somehow or too cheap. I need a nice phone. What I need is a phone that can really do what I need it to do. And then it's like, yeah, you do Facebook. You're going to be fine. So again, it's just beautiful. Like the videos that come out, like if Google can be praised for any trend, it's the Pixel 3a. When Google optimizes for a budget crowd-pleasing experience, it is so proper good. It's so good, it makes the conversation on a Pixel 5 a lot trickier, right? So again, I have high hopes for the 4a 5G living up to her kind of use. Lots of video, taking photos and videos of Lex, lots of social media, and then keeping up with business communications. I think it's going to crush it. I think she's going to love it. But yeah, so it'll be fun to do sort of a family podcast. Maybe even have Lex pop in and be like, hey, I'm interrupting, haha, and then running away. ER 1980, that's dirty. She'll also have to get used to monthly updates. I've always been bitter about the Google Fi G7 because it didn't get updated like it should have. The G7 actually got okay support. Not the Fi Edition version, though. It's so frustrating. Oof. ER 1980, a family friend just updated his wife from a Note 4 to a Pixel 4a, 319 pound on Friday, just gone. Yeah, that's a nice upgrade. I love my Note 4. I mean, again, Note 4 is a museum piece phone for me, and I do genuinely use it quite often for production stuff in the lab. But if they were using the Note 4 as their daily driver, going to a Pixel 4a is going to feel... I mean, again, it's going to feel like a different universe of use. Raymondit, the 4A is too cheap. Old hardware, Gorilla Glass 3. They should have 5 at least, and an IP rating. Maybe. The phone's $350. So I have a hard time really getting too angsty about that. It's, again, there's a component of you get what you pay for, and that's for both good things and bad things. But those compromises, I feel, are not consumer daily life issues that are really going to hamper or impact the use of that device. It's kind of like a OnePlus. There's no proper rating on a OnePlus 8T. There's no IP rating there. It's just generally splash resistant. I think most consumers would be fine with a rating of IP53, but it actually does a disservice to a company to detail, oh, your phone only has IP53? Oh, that's a deal breaker. And it's actually better to just not test the phone in the court of public opinion and certify it, because then you don't have to deal with people, tech influencers, complaining that one number isn't as big as another number. IP53 would be great. I think HTC 10 IP53 was awesome. It was all you really needed for general splash and spill resistance. You can't dunk it in a swimming pool for 30 minutes. Cool. So again, the lifestyle applications of her, and in fact, one of the things that she's excited about on the Pixel 4a 5G is the back of the phone not being glass. The back of her G7 is glass, and she had it in a really rugged bumper case, and she still managed to crack the back glass. That phone never came out of a case. Never came out of a case. And she's not one that's constantly dropping it from like ear height. We don't know when, where, or how the back glass cracked, but glass is glass, and glass will shatter at some point. Plastic is probably gonna do her much better when she puts it in a case, just like she kept her G7 in a case. And just like her G7, she cracked the front glass on a screen protector, and we're going to do the same thing on her Pixel. We're going to put a screen protector on it. So this Gorilla Glass 3 versus Gorilla Glass 5 is kind of immaterial. Like, we got a 3-pack of Super Shields for $8. We've got plenty of room for her to scratch through and crack a couple screen protectors before we need to worry about the phone. So I'm not angsty at all. When we have those kinds of compromises, we just need to detail them. This phone has a slightly older version of Gorilla Glass. It's still going to be lifestyle durable. You might want to put a screen protector on it if that's your jam. That's it. That's the disclosure. It's not a deal breaker, buy or don't buy. It's fine. Ooh, yeah. ER1980. What excited me yesterday was with the potential tease from Tana So Lit when the Pixel Watch was mentioned. I'd love to see Google properly back wearables. I mean, again, with their acquisition of Focals by North, RIP, and then also Fitbit. Man, it would be nice to see them put some more oomph behind that. Dave Burns. But Juan, I want to drag my phone through the sand and into the ocean. That's how I imagine how you talk. But I want to do it. It's like I just watched Star Trek 4 again, but what about those whales? We gotta save the whales. It's like the worst. I feel so bad for that actress, but it's like the worst line to deliver with passion, and then also just not a great line delivery. And a DTNL, another huge issue I have with the Velvet is that curved design with glass back. I so badly wanted it to be polycarb. It's tough because like I don't want to besmirch phones like the Note 20 and the Galaxy S20 FE, but I don't want cheap feeling plastic that's designed to kind of look like glass in marketing photos. I feel that's way worse for consumers. So you get it, and it's kind of got a tacky feel on your fingers. I mean, there's a reason why like glass feels kind of nice. Like I get it. It's a dumb material to make the back of a phone out of. It's shiny. It's just like, oh, I'm a barely evolved primate and I saw something shiny. Ooh, how pretty. But I would love soft matte finish, soft touch matte finished polycarb to make a comeback. It's a premium feel. It's a premium experience. And it's, in my opinion, it is way nicer and more luxurious and more practical than glossy plastic or glass. I really wish we could get back there. It would make me really happy to have that as an option on, especially these mid-tier, these upper mid-tier. They're still expensive phones, but they're not like $2,000 devices. Like a Galaxy S20 FE with a matte finish. I would be a lot more excited about. A Note 20 that's not pretending to be glass just to make it more of a pain point phone and trying to trick you into buying the gimped version of the Note 20 or convince you that you need to step up. Like, we only use plastic on devices that we feel like, well, you could buy this, but it's not as nice. So maybe you want to spend $300 more and get that Note 20 Ultra instead. It's just so frustrating. Like, all the things we've lost on the Note to make the Note a painful experience so that it encourages you to buy up even higher. It's so frustrating. But one of the things that we could address with that is just a nicer polycarb feel to the back of these devices. And I've got like a shelf full of Lumias that all very well represent that idea, that have all been used way more aggressively, almost never in cases. I do try to put screen protectors on those devices. And like, they look phenomenal. Like, they've aged so well. And I wouldn't be able to say the same for the same kind of use without a case on any kind of glass-backed phone. It's just a bummer. Did you know glass is glass and glass breaks? Tech Lovin' Mama. My mama taught me it's better to be safe than sorry. I like that. Again, I used to be the guy who was like, I'm never putting cases on my phones. This is how people should be able to trust the lifestyle durability. Not true. Not true anymore. It's like a case is now a mandatory purchase. Anyone who's like, oh, I'm just going to use my phone naked. Well, you're dumb. You're dumb. You're wasteful. You like wasting money. You like compromising expensive gadgets. That's dumb. The manufacturers are making these devices incomplete. And part of the incompleteness of the device is the structural integrity of the lifestyle durability. From Al Spockley, what about wireless charging? Isn't that the main reason for glass backs? Yeah, but that's only an argument against aluminum. That's only an argument against metal backs. The first phones with wireless charging had plastic backs, so polycarbs and glossy plastics. The Note 4 had pins that you could enable a special rubbery back that had wireless charging. The Nokia phones, Qi charging kind of built on Nokia's standard. All of those were plastic back devices. We could be making phones out of, carbon fiber might not be good for signal though. I've seen some conversations that carbon fiber is bad for radio reception, but we had Kevlar backs. You could make a phone out of an exotic material that's more durable and flexy and like, what was it? The Motorola had some of those that were Kevlar backed. And then I had wireless charging support on phones with leather backs. Yeah, it's if wireless charging is the argument, I mean, I have a Pixel 5 here. It's an engineering challenge, but the metal frame of this phone has a section built into it for proper support of wireless charging, and it does not have a glass back. So there's plenty of other things that we could be doing. We just lose the all aluminum. If wireless charging is the it feature to have, we lose aluminum. The rest of the materials are still sound. You could make a phone with a wood back, and I bet you could implement Qi charging coils into a wood back. Yep. Let's see. Find X2 Pro has ceramic and leather back options. ER1980 wireless charging works fine through plastic back phones. The Nexus 7 2013 had a plastic back with wireless charging. ER was also bringing up the Pixel 5. From Doomer, the only thing that concerns me about plastic is the long-term usage of headphone jack and charging ports. Absolutely a concern, but what I would say is we're not going to go all the way back, right? We shouldn't go all the way back to plastic frame. But, look at the engineering, how beautiful the engineering is on this LG Velvet. And this entire rim is a metal frame that runs, between the glass on glass sandwich stack. So we just keep the metal frame. All of your ports are drilled into on this aluminum, aircraft aluminum grade frame. And then we just pop out, literally just pop out this panel this glass panel here and put in a soft matte finish polycarb that's nicer to hold on to. It's got kind of a satiny kind of a vibe to it. We wouldn't have to change anything else about the construction of this phone and the durability of the connector points, the headphone jack and the USB-C. All we would do is remove one fragile point of potential damage and replace it with something that should be a bit more durable. I'm good. We could do that. We could do that tomorrow. Simon says, Hypno, Droid Turbo in Kevlar ballistic nylon. How cool would that be? I mean, that commercial was awesome. Those old Droid commercials. Droid. Yeah, your phone is made out of the same material that goes into bulletproof vests. I guess you care about having durable products, unlike those other people who have these sensitive, these fragile consumer electronics. I'm sorry, I'm picking on LG. It's just the most immediate phone that I can reach that looks pretty on camera. Again, there are solutions. It's just we've got to actually encourage a conversation that supports them, and we've got to stop using alternative materials on devices that are sort of designed to not be sold. The Note 20, there is no argument for the existence of the Note 20. I don't get it. You can't show me anyone who's going to be good with that phone over a Note 10 Plus, saving money on that, or a Note 20 Ultra. It doesn't make any sense to me. Pacostin, at least most phones have gone away with the entire glass being part of the camera lens too. I don't know. I mean, like in an ever increasing age of camera sensor sizes, I think it's kind of tricky because like look at the iPhone 12s. So the back panel on that, I believe, is one continuous piece of glass. So the raised camera module is actually more fragile because if there's pressure applied, it can crack around the camera module more easily. And then you also look at Samsung's, like the durability of that large domino strip is more fragile than the older styles that like the camera sensors here that are literally just built into the back of this phone. I believe that this would actually be more durable than the raised and pronounced clearance of the larger, mostly hollow camera module on something like a Note 20 or an S20 Ultra. So I don't know. I kind of feel like at this point we've reached a tier of material science where it's 6 of one, a half a dozen of another. They're probably going to be just as fragile. They're going to be fragile in different ways. And that's why I would love to get to different kinds of material science. Like if you made the back polycarb and then you made the camera module aluminum, you wouldn't have anything on the back of the phone that could crack like that. And you would have less clearance less surface area to cover for maybe a sapphire lens element. And that would be easier. It's what I like about the Velvet is the camera bulge on the main camera sensor is just the ring around the camera sensor. There's no additional bulge for other stuff. So this is much more discreet and as a point of contact should be more durable than if all of this were a raised camera sensor. But I digress. So we should probably wrap this up, folks. Thank you. This was a really fun show. I know I had a lot of news that we had to kind of chew through, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see that Ajit Pai is going to be stepping down. Hopefully we can follow through on these conversations for protecting digital rights and communications and corporate competition into the new year. I'm really excited about that. We got a new phone in the family. My wife going to be firing up a Pixel, and we're going to have some fun conversations about what that's going to mean. And then as I'm closing out the year, we've got some more reviews, comparisons, performance testing, and benchmarking we're going to need to get through. It's a lot. We got a lot of work to do, and it's going to be some really fun stuff. So I'm glad to have you all around for the ride. And I'll always bring it up if someone mentions it in a comment. Gabaletta, let's make another V10-like phone and call it a day. If LG made another phone with a grippy, rubbery back and stainless steel rails on the side, I would swoon so hard. So, folks, I want you to have an amazing week with your technology. I hope you had some good family time, and I hope you will have some good family time in the weeks ahead as we close out 2020 and we get ready for the holidays. Excuse me, sorry. But just in the context of this conversation that we're having right now, I hope you have an amazing week with your tech. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I want to see all of these faces here and more. Bring a friend next week. We can have a good old family showdown conversation about technology, but it's still getting crazy out there. Here in our neck of the woods, we're closing down parks and gathering places again. We're probably going to be on another lockdown for restaurants soon. Stay safe. Keep your head down. Keep washing your hands. Wear your masks. I don't want anyone getting hurt out there, and especially for our more vulnerable family and friends that need our help to not spread this around. That kind of empathy, that kind of consideration is huge. And I want to say thank you for those of you who are practicing your social distancing and wearing your mask and washing your hands. It means a lot, even if you don't always get the sort of kudos you deserve for just the basic empathy for your neighbors, your families, and friends. I'll catch you all back here for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care. I'll catch you back. I love you all.